All right, looks like I am live. So, first, I'm gonna get out of the way. I just did a progress post on r/getting bigger. I tend to get a lot of hate for those for whatever reason. So, if you're watching this, if you could go to Reddit and give that a thumbs up, that would be great. Not asking for much, but if you don't do it, no big deal. Uh, yeah, today's a chest day. I'm running really late because I made that log and it went way longer than expected. That's another topic for another day. Well, I can give you the gist. Someone gave me shit like 2 or 3 months ago that I don't log frequently enough. That post took me 3 hours between measuring, getting the screenshots, and then typing up what I did, as well as photoshopping the pictures together. Not in faking it, but like literally cropping them side by side, and then scaling can take some time. One of those videos for like the golden path will literally take me like 5 to 10 hours. So let's see, pulling up chat now. We actually got a bit of the regulars in. Hello, Mr. Tula. Question about pumping. I try 2-minute sets and 5 minutes of 2 minutes. I do 8 mini sets of 2 minutes. I get mild edema foreskin with 5-minute sets. I get a little edema between the 5 sets. I took the D and the rest 2 minutes hard, 5-minute sets. Okay. What are you asking? Basically, you should be going with the lesser edema response, except with collagen fatigue, you want to have, with collagen fatigue, you want more sets in general. So if there's going to be a bit of a trade-off, it's going to really depend on your body fat, though, what edema rate you want. Normally, the fatter you are, the less time you want under pressure. Do I ever do abs? Yes, but I'm too fat to really show them, and I don't really have good ab genes. I literally spent the last 7 months, so from January through July doing abs. So, like, they're strong, they're just not pretty. Okay, blade. I've been trying to do your interval length protocol from your book with the hog extender. Results show promise, but I'm not sure about the tension during retention. I have the phallicin for 4 to 6 hours. So with the phallicin, you just want to be like on the tail end of yellow is a good way to put it. So like between green and yellow, that way you're getting the elongation, but it's not going to be overly fatiguing. Okay. Give me 1 second to adjust camera height, guys. Whoa, wrong one. Let's see. Kenny, in the Girth book, I've been doing the cock rings for 20 minutes post-session. It causes some mild edema. Is that okay? So, like, what I've noticed is that it makes the edema a bit more noticeable under the skin because the erection goes down a bit, so it's just not going to be as, how to put it, tight and taut against the skin. So no matter what you do, you're going to have some edema afterwards, even with pumping. Main differences with using a cock ring right afterwards is that edema can't escape right away, so it's going to be more notable. But what I've noticed is that even with the extra edema, I am significantly thicker for a couple hours after the fact. So it's probably okay. It just really depends on the edema response you have initially. Okay, I'm going to start stretching. Again, guys, I'm really behind schedule. So I've switched to a bit of a cut. I'm going to Hawaii in like 2 months, less than that now. So I want to clean up this midsection a bit. I woke up, did fasted cardio, so that way I can actually cook a dinner instead of just get takeout all the damn time. But that's one of the things we're doing. And then I've also just cutting calories mildly. Speaking of, I forgot to get my pre-workout carbs in, so we'll see how this goes. But I did have a revelation over the weekend. I just can't remember. Not revelation, but something cool. Okay, I've been doing 5 days of pumping, 20 minutes, and then soft clamping, 2 days off, good schedule. It's it really depends if you're getting the expansion response. Because if you're getting the expansion, then yes, it's just going to just depend on if you're actually hitting the metrics you need, right? Again, all these metrics are just guidelines. But like if you're pumping like I pump, I can get right to the cusp of expansion within 20 minutes, so it's more than likely good enough. But I can't make any promises unless I actually see the data. Yeah, so that vacation, I'm still going to try to stream during it. It's literally the only thing I'm going to do for business during it. So I just got to figure out a good way to bring some equipment with me. But, you know, same thing just here or at the condo. Thoughts on Hank's vid on Cialis? Um, Hank's, I don't, so spoiler guys, I don't watch Hank's stuff mainly because I'm already thinking about dick 6 hours a day. I don't need to have more of it thrown in my face. But whatever Hank says normally is correct when it comes to medicine. I will say that. There's a reason why I work with him with Leviathan. He is very smart in general. I mean, he's a doctor, but what I mean is like he has a better understanding of the physio pathways than most people ever will. So like pretty sure he said it helps with muscle mass and recovery and penis size over time. Um, as long as he didn't over exaggerate it, which I know he didn't, knowing him, his advice is probably very pertinent. Hank's live chat is wild. Was shocked at how much flow the question was there. That's because Hank is a freaking monster when it comes to producing content. I don't know how he does it. He is able to produce 2 to 3 videos a week while still working full time and other obligations outside of work and this, yet he still does it. So, and it's coming as someone who is like a writer in this space. I don't know how he does it. Like, it's so frustrating to me. Like, I'm jealous of how he can just produce that much content. Because I can barely even write 2 scripts a month at this point. Irish Liam, hello. So, for anyone that's just watching, the way this works, if you have any questions, just throw them in the chat. It can be about anything from fitness to penis enlargement to size and sex questions in general to literally anything, as long as it's not like politically charged or racially charged. So okay, so I'm going to start with tool up because I already started that question. So if I drop from 25% to 18%, the chances of getting edema is less. Thanks for the response. Can you elaborate why we get more edema with higher body fat? Simply put, your body holds more water when you have more fat. So if we drop the fat, we have less water to pull in for. Basically, when I was above 22% body fat, I got a lot more edema than I do now, around 15. So going from 26 to 18, you should see a significant improvement. Okay, Infinite. I believe you now over an expectation of years. I've changed my routine, ignored PERS 1 hour is all needed. That's the worst advice. You need multiple 1 hour sessions. Okay, you do not need multiple 1 hour sessions. So I only do, let's see, right now I'm only doing 50 minutes of PE, 30 minutes in the middle of the day, 10 minutes when I wake up, 10 minutes when I go to bed. It's more about the frequency rather than the entire volume, and you'll basically just need to make sure you get the tissue fatigued at any point in the day. So then what we do then is keep that tissue stretched like that so it doesn't have a choice to grow in a more dense shape rather than a bigger shape. Donkey teeth. Typically, how long does peak male physique take to ship? Well, right now it's a bit of extraneous circumstances. We have a huge rush on orders, and we're still trying to figure out the exact cause. We got someone to do search engine optimization for us, but Hank also made 3 videos right on pumping, and his channel is like 5 times the size of mine when it comes to actual viewership. So that could be it. But anyway, we are getting a large order of pumps in this week. So if you got a 1.75 or a 2.0, they will go out this week, hopefully. But yeah, it's been nuts how many orders we've been getting. Like, our orders literally doubled from August to, July to now. Like, it is crazy what's happening. I don't want to give you specific numbers because then people get real mad about it. Okay, one more set of this. Thinking if I want to get some carbs. Girth Quake. You think 15 minutes in the morning and night is better than 30 minutes all at once. It's specifically how you set up the workload. So your morning and night routines are going to be like 2/3 as of intensity as your working routine. So those are more so to help train shape over time, while your actual working routine is what's going to be causing growth. So it's not that I think it's better. I think it's necessary for optimization. But if you had to choose between one 30-minute session to actually fatigue the tissue and splitting it up, you need to get the 30 minutes in first. Okay, donkey teeth. What do you think is the best way to use the tunica tool? I think you mean the little metal scraper. Frequency. So, full disclaimer, I have not used mine in about a year at this point. Okay, maybe 10 months. But it still has a use. It's just I prefer to use my hands for this stuff. Basically, you just need 50 scrapes. You can count them up and down. About 1 to 2 seconds depending on your length. You do not want to be digging too deep into the skin, obviously. You just want to have slight compression as you go down, and that's going to secrete the growth factors and also break down some fibrosis that's on the surface. Okay, I'm going to grab some granola bars. I'll be right back. Be 2 seconds. All right, sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to make sure I didn't get too tired during this workout. Now you're going to see me do something weird. Because school's back in session, all the good chocolate chip granola bars are taken. The mom's coming and just clean off the shelves. So I'm eating 2 granola bars that should taste relatively similar when put together. Got pretty close. Aru. I'm starting 10 minutes of pumping in the morning, wearing a cock ring for 20 minutes, doing a working set in the PM. Seems to help it flaccid a bit after a week or so. So, like, sorry, it's very rude to talk with food in your mouth. So, I have noticed it's like a compounding stretchiness when it comes to doing this retention stuff. Because it's like trained to be in this new shape, you're actually making the tunica a little thinner over time. Therefore, it's going to be more floppy. Like, I want to say Saturday or Sunday, I took a week or a day or two off from PE. I didn't do anything over this weekend. My flaccid, no joke, was like 7.5 inches on Sunday morning. No PE. And it was just like the straight up, just because of all the compounding interest of the retention stuff. Finally got a day off. It had enough time to fully recover. But there's something to it. Yeah, sorry about the food ASMR. So, let's see. My normal routine is 6 days a week, says Tula. Rest on Sundays. I'm soft clamping later this afternoon. So why is it more effective with soft clamping 2 on 1 off, 2 days on, 2 days off per week so far with the session? So it's more or less that hypoxic clamping is very stressful in general. Imagine getting strangled, okay, on purpose so you can hold your breath longer. You probably don't want to go through that more than twice a week before it really starts fucking with your brain, right? Now, this is a very bad analogy, but think about your nerves and everything else. If there's a lot of cumulative damage over time to these nerves from constantly being in a hypoxic state, you could potentially hurt yourself. So that's why we limit it to like 2 to 3 days a week instead of doing it every day. So Deborah, why does your flaccid hang so much lower when you have to piss? Because you're exerting pressure on your muscles in your pelvic floor. When I was younger, I either had a tighter pelvic floor or a bigger bladder. And it would exert pressure, and that would cause basically like a semi-arousal response just because of the added pressure in the pelvic floor. What does my diet look like? Well, right now, the mainstay is always breakfast, and it's just a variation of red skin potatoes, steak, eggs, spinach, and cheese. Right now, I'm only eating 2 eggs instead of 6 eggs, and I'm eating more steak in place of that so I can still get my protein requirements with cutting my fat a bit. And then I'm eating less egg in overall just because it's not very good for your cholesterol that you be eating that many eggs, but you know, really I'm just trying to get a lot of food in me while staying full. To stay full, rather. But I'm still dialing it in for this cut. My main idea is that I just want to do a bunch of cardio fasting, because the last time I did fasted cardio, I lost like 10 pounds in 2 weeks. So like if I can keep my muscle mass and glycogen retention, so like what makes my muscles full, I'll look fucking insane in 2 weeks, but I'm not making a promise on that. Getting some water. Okay. So I said my flash was like 7.5. It's gone back to about 6.5 because I'm stressing out the tissue again. It was very short-lived. It was like maybe 4 to 6 hours of very good blood flow down there. Granted, this was without Cialis or anything, but also depends on how you measure flaccid, because one of the research studies that I saw, and this is why I stopped like really paying attention to Calc SD, is that they would measure the flaccid from basically here to here while it was, you know, on your body. So here to here, as like putting in your hand and measuring it. When I measure in my hand versus hanging low, it's like an 1.5 inch difference. So that kind of just completely invalidated most of the meta-analysis on Calc SD for me. Mr. Tula, switching from vegetable oil to butter. I think butter is more healthy than any vegetable oil. That's mostly correct. I use grass-fed butter because it's slightly better nutrient profile. But like, fats really aren't the enemy. It's just certain fats in excess are going to be enemies. So like canola oil corn oil, chewing. But like, think about it this way. Our bodies were never really designed to eat a lot of plant fat, because like what they have to do is take the entire plant, beat it down until it starts making an oily mess. We're not supposed to be having that in the same quality as animal fat. We're more designed to be eating animal fats. And you know, like avocados, a healthy fat and stuff like that. But in general, the more like, the less processed the food is, the healthier it's going to be. Now, I'm not saying make your own bread or anything, but you got to just be careful of how much oil they put in stuff, what kind of oil they're using, and then how much sugar they're putting into your food. And that's going to have to be way higher. Good exercises for fat pad. So it's next to impossible to treat spot fat loss reduction, right? Just because basically fat loss is determined by how your genes interpret fat loss. Different parts of your body will have different receptors, and those receptors are going to be more sensitive to fat burn than the others. So an individual could be literally like 26% body fat and have no fat pad, or they can be the exact opposite. They could be 10% body fat and still have an inch to an inch and a half fat pad. But to treat it, your best bet is to get lean. You can do a lot of lower ab exercises, hopefully tighten up that skin. So like hanging leg raises, flutter kicks, that kind of stuff. And then what I do, and this is not an exercise, but it's more like a health spa bullshit thingy. But it is research backed. It's called cavitation therapy. And essentially it uses a frequency that can excite water. When we mean excite, like make it burst. Like it would start making a mist or a steam from the sound waves. And what that does to fat then is, since the water content in fat is so much higher, it will literally cause the fat cells to burst. And if you do this enough times and give it enough time in general, so like if you do this once a week for 6 weeks, you are going to lose like upwards of 50% of your body fat in that specific area that you're treating. I'm actually doing a video on that eventually. I just started doing that again today, where I'm tracking my lower abdomen fat while using the cavitation device. You can find them on AliExpress for relatively cheap, for like $100. So if you really just want to lose the fat pad, try cavitation therapy. I do have a few videos on my channel. Granted, I was much pudgier at the time and a bit more nervous on camera. All right, Irish Liam, what is the most attractive male body part to a woman? For men, it's either breast or butt. What do you think is the male equivalent? Well, even breast and butt is a generalization, because I like very curvy women, meaning that large tits and ass are great, but there's going to be some guys that I think my taste are a bit too much. So some men will find anything over a double D to be too much, or some guys won't date anything less than a D cup, right? Now, applying that to women, in general, it's the shoulders to waist ratio, because that's just how they are kind of coded genetically. The wider something is, the better they are to protect and, you know, forage for food and hunt. But there's going to be a point where having too much muscle mass is going to be a turn-off to some people. So if I was going to say anything, it's going to be shoulders predominantly, followed by waist. Doesn't even have to be like shredded, but you know, you don't want to have an overhanging gut. And then ass, to be honest, because ass is like honestly the most human muscle when you think about it, because that's what allows us to walk, run, and then use our hands. Because if our asses were able to make us bipedal, we would still be you know, just typical animals for the most part. So back to what Liam's asking, what about abs? Abs are nice, but I find that abs only really matter to women under 25, because that's what they're kind of taught to like. And then once they actually are starting to date, and realize not many men have abs, and there's much more potentially sexier things on a man than just low body fat percentage, you'll be good. Basically, this is just what I've noticed. Women that are into the same body type as their men. So like if a woman likes their men a little bit chubbier for whatever reason, or a bit hulkier, those men usually like the woman a little bit curvier. It's just kind of like how their genetics are set up. Okay, what came in? Okay, Forsaken, back to the flaccid measuring. Shouldn't you measure your flaccid while laying down, as that is the natural direction when hanging, it hangs downward? So it's more of a semantic thing. It really just depends on what study you're going off of. But for me, what happens is let's say the bar's hanging straight out like this, right? When it starts to droop, you're going to have an outside curve, which is going to be longer, and then the inside curve is going to be shorter. So like, what side of the curve do you measure on then, right? So I particularly believe in you want to be measuring your flaccid 90 degrees parallel, because that's how you're going to be measuring erect anyway. It makes it much easier to know the delta of change between your erect length and stretch flaccid length. Okay, let's see. I hear leg raises can help raise erection angle, but I don't know if that's true. I think I said something similar to that last week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. Basically, since the ligaments fuse to the lower abdomen fascia, if you tighten up that fascia, you could potentially pull up your erection angle. There is no medical evidence for this. It is all speculation, but it is definitely possible. And I have noticed this a little bit myself since I just crushed abs for the past 7 to 8 months. My erections point a little bit higher. Like we're talking 5 to 10 degrees, so it's nothing crazy, but something to keep in mind. Okay, hey BD, why do you think the pump pressures for growth seem to have gone up? I remember with 6 to HD and almost everything I saw in red nowadays, it's 10 inches of mercury seems to be standard. So, it's not that it went up. I think some people misinterpreted me, and I did have a big-ass typo in my Girth book where I said you only need 5 to 10 pressure. 5 to 10 inches of mercury of pressure. What it really should have been is 5 to 10 inches of mercury of pressure to start. In general, your tissue is only going to be able to handle 5 to 8 inches of mercury in the beginning because it is not trained to handle these large pressures. We only need to go slightly beyond what our erections can handle normally. But as we progress, we build better erection quality, stronger pelvic floor muscles, and our tunica gets thicker. It's going to need more pressure. So you're going to have to slowly go up pressure over time. Now, the reason why the recommendation has gone up is because Hank made a video that says scientifically this is the pressure that you need to use. But I'm not sure if he omitted some of the studies that I go off of that show the natural erections about 4 inches to 6 inches of mercury. Therefore, 5 to 7 is where we really want to be starting. But all right, let me get this set in and I'll get back to questions. Okay, guys? This is just a warm-up. I probably shouldn't lift heavy, so we'll just stick at 225 and rep it out. For those who haven't been watching the streams, I have straightened my right pec 2 or 3 weeks ago, straightened my left pec the following week because I'm trying to get back up to 315 for 8 to 10. And my muscles are not prepared for it, even though they can do it, if that makes sense. All right, Forsaken. How lean If you are lean, how much fat pad is too much to the point where lipo might be a reasonable option? So it depends on like what you define as lean. For me, lean is like your stomach does not overhang whatsoever. So like that's fitness. I would consider myself lean. Even though I don't have abs, I am in much better shape than the majority of Americans. Then ripped is going to be when you start getting abs, right? So that'll be, you know, your 10% body fat. If you're still having a fat pad at around 10% body fat or ripped, then you should consider lipo if it's really that big of a deal to you. But like most guys are going to have on average between 3/4 of an inch to an inch of fat. And then the leaner you get is going to be about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. I did have some clients that were particularly lean and had good genetics for fat pad, but they still had like a 1/8 of an inch delta because of the skin and the fascia that holds the penis in. And you can't really burn fascia. So let's see. Mr. Casper, I asked about dips originally. I haven't done them in a while, but I'm going to order a dip bar once my other toys for this come in. Let's see. There's the dips question. Girth quick. So I've gained a lot of girth, my guy. Thank you. What do you think is most important exercise? It's going to be pumping, but like the second most important thing is going to actually be able to get the tissue to relax beforehand, and that's going to be tunica release stuff. So it's literally just massaging your dick in different ways to get the tissues to relax, and then it's like allowing the tissue to be more like a balloon rather than a rigid structure. Destroyer, what's the max amount of expansive clamping per day? So if you're doing 5-minute sets, you can do up to an hour, but you need to make sure you have enough breaks to make sure you don't cause too much hypoxia. Should I buy Cialis first, says Leo, which I've never tried, or a vibration motor? So those are completely different things, my guy. So Cialis is going to help with erection quality. If you have very terrible erection quality, that's going to lead to faster gains than vibration motors. Vibration engines, particularly if you're doing how I do it, is going to be much more like a physiotherapy-based thing. It's going to take time to kick in, but once it builds up, it's like compounding interest. So it will help you grow long-term. Let me get the set in and I'll catch up on questions, okay? Okay, we'll do 10 to start and then we'll go to failure on the last two. I should probably get my wraps for the next one. Not gonna lie, I wasn't really counting, but okay. Enrico, do you recommend vibration with bundle extending for faster length? Separately, yes. Vibration is relatively intense in general. Like, you should only be doing that on its own if you're vibrating, extending, or vibrating pumping. Do not add any crazy twist to it. That being said, doing bundled stretches before vibration hanging or extending is going to allow for a bit more elongation, but more importantly, novel stimulus. I don't even know if the questions I'm answering are on on screen. Okay. Have I ever tried front delt raised with the cables facing away from the machine? Yes. For me, that gets more upper chest though. Beast suit. I've gotten more vascular from clamping, which is expected. So think about it this way. If hypoxia is going to grow blood vessels, it's also going to grow veins. So if you're getting more vascular, that's a good sign. If you're getting discolored, that's also typical. If it's like a reddish hue, that means your erection quality is increasing. If it's like a purplish to almost like black, like a bruise color, then it's going to be a bit more concerning. So I have a strong amount of discoloration, right? It's not that big of a deal with discoloration. It's just more so a sign that you probably could either take more time between sets or make your sets shorter. I'm going to fill up my water, guys. I'll be right back. I'm back just off screen looking for my wraps. Oh, my allergies are like really bad today, so if I'm a little extra wheezy than normal, that would be why. I guess I'm not using wraps today. Sorry, this is kind of hard to navigate for some reason. Okay, Akash. I'm new to PE. I'm still studying it. My question is, how much gains have you made in my entire journey, if you don't mind me asking? So, I've went from 6 inches long bone pressed to just over 9 inches bone pressed in about, geez, it's been like 10 years. About 3 or 4 of those I was not taking PE seriously. I did get close to 9 inches a couple of times, but between me measuring like a dickhead and catching COVID, I did lose some size. So like overall, I've gained 3 inches, but I've gained the same inch, like last inch. So from 8 to 9, like twice. So it's quite frustrating in that regard. But if you really want to get big, it is definitely possible. It's just there's not much evidence on it because one, the ability to take pictures and share them online with such ease as it is today, because we didn't have smartphones back in like 2009, right? At least in the same capacity. It was much more difficult to have long-term proof. Then followed by, who the hell wants to be on a PE form for more than 10 years that doesn't have money involved in the same space, you know? So, yeah, let me get this set, and then I'll try to do like a lightning round to get through all those questions. Oh, this seat's up. I didn't realize that. Oh, it's not counting that. Okay, Forsaken. For someone who has never pumped, how do you know when you have to find the right pressure for growth? How does it feel like? So, Hink put this a very good way. Remember when you were younger and you first started going through puberty and you get very almost painful and intense erections? Like they'd be very stiff and hard. You're looking for that kind of feeling. So, like a slight stretching. If you pump up anymore, it might hurt a little too much. That's what you want to go for. You do not want to actually have it hurt, but like you just like want to know it's working, right? I'm not sure that's a good way to put it. Infinite, I have no idea what you're talking about. A more muscular version of the Patrick Bateman. What the fuck's Patrick Bateman? I'm just gonna let you do your thing, all right? All right, hi Zero. Do you still think 2-minute sets of interval pumping is superior to 5-minute sets after Hinks personally noticed? I personally noticed better expansion of interval pumping. So, interval pumping is not that much different than 5-minute sets. The main difference is that 5-minute sets are 5-minute intervals. Now, when we look at the studies, the more often the tissue stretches, the more more chances we have of tissue failure. So, tissue failure is what leads to growth. Therefore, shorter sets for the same amount of time are going to have a greater growth response than longer sets for the same amount of time. Now, there is the argument of the dilation forcing the collagen, since it's more of like a long-term stretch, forcing that collagen into a different shape. So my most recent stuff says fatigue work is going to cause your growth. The retention work and then the feeder sets that I've been doing AM and PM are going to be much more similar to what Hank's teaching, with this change in shape long term. That's going to guide the shape, while my fatigue work is what's going to lead to the actual gains. Okay, so Jed is a gymnast. Since he has very good grip strength, he can pull much harder. Therefore, it's making it more fatiguing than hanging. I would suggest lightening up a bit, especially if you just started PE. The nice thing about hanging is that you can actually track how much tension you're using, right? So like if 5 pounds isn't feeling like much, and honestly it really shouldn't at a certain point, like you should be able to do 5 pounds for an hour with no issues, like once you're in month 4 or 5 of penis enlargement. But it's like it's all going to be tension is tension. So like if you can produce more tension with your arm than 5 pounds of weight can, then it's not going to be as mild as it is for you, right? Irish Liam, abs versus biceps. What do you think is ranks higher in attractiveness? It depends on the woman. My wife is an arm guy. If you couldn't tell, you know, I still have big lanky arms, so they're not overly big. But abs are like icing on the cake. Most women don't need them. Same with big arms, but like if you just have a generally good physique, a woman is going to be interested, abs or biceps not included, right? It's just the overall package. And it's kind of a loaded question because like biceps and abs are not mutually exclusive, right? You can have big biceps and abs. You just got to work up both of them. They only take 10 minutes every 2 or 3 days. So, you know, is M9 legit? That is a loaded question. I believe M9 has gained with penis enlargement. I don't even know if his pictures are still up, but I would say he is close to the size he says he is. Okay, Forsaken. For people who wish to minimize their fat fat, 10% is the lowest body fat percentage that they can keep. For the most part, yes, but even then, 10 to 12%, depending on your genes, let's say you are naturally going to sit at 18%, it's going to take work. And that work is always going to be a mild stress in the back of your head. So, in general, I promote feeling good more than looking good. That's why I don't try to starve myself as much as I used to look a certain way, because that was kind of a downward spiral. Another topic for another day, though. How many days off is best if you're doing Girth work? 1 or 2? It depends on your overall workload. I have been doing 5 days a week right now. I recommend anywhere from 4 to 6, so you want 2 to 3 days 1 to 3 days off in most cases. Okay. Donta, what are your views on anterior pelvic tilts? Where to go? What are your views on anterior pelvic tilt? Does it have any issues with penis health? So, anterior pelvic tilt is when it's cocked back like this. I have slight anterior pelvic tilt most days. So here, and then this is posterior where you're pushing forward. Actually, this is probably gonna have more issues on the pelvic floor health because you're flexing your butt, and then that's causing more tension to everything else. The only issue with anterior pelvic tilt, so butt back, is that your penis is going to be hidden under your pubic bone, and that could potentially hide some length, but is not going to overly impact penile health. You guys are going to make me watch that Hank video. Okay, let me get this set out, and then I'll get back to questions, okay? I really should probably check the Reddit comments to see if there's any trolls on that post. One more, come on. Ugh. I just had a big log of mucus roll down my throat during that. Ugh. Okay. Irish labor, an hour of rest including for clamping, right? An hour with rest. You can do, so if it's 5 on, 5 off, you can do 2 hours total. But I really wouldn't recommend doing that. That's if you're going off of what a joke for you says, by the way. Ooh. Let me catch my breath, guys. So, Red is finishing up the cover for my next little book. It's going to be the Ultimate Beginner's Guide. And essentially, I distilled 20,000 words into like 6,000 to 8,000. I can't remember the exact number from my other books. I made it specifically so you can start PE super fast. It will be an add-on to the big book bundle. So if you bought both books, you'll get it for free if you care. And then I got to rework the big books in general to like, I got much better explaining things over the past year, so I'm going to have to go through and fix the explanations, but you know. All right, so Hank's video on Cialis being a miracle drug. I really like Cialis. It's anything that causes vasodilation is going to improve health metrics. It's going to help flush anything out of the blood since it's just allowing blood flow to flow easier. So if you're trying to export fat and cholesterol, that's going to help with that marginally. If we're talking performance, more blood flow to the muscle leads to better pumps. That stretches, or that stretching of the muscle itself leads to better growth. And then since we have better blood flow in general to the muscle, you're going to get better nutrient delivery. So if I know Hank, he was not making it out to be the world's greatest drug, but he was pointing out all the other benefits outside of penis enlargement and sexual satisfaction that comes with Cialis. If it wasn't for the stigma, it would probably be used elsewhere in preventative cares, particularly for heart health. I believe Hank said something along the lines of, a lot of men after 35 for preventative care should be on a low dose of Cialis just to keep their heart healthy. Don't quote me on that. You can ask Hank if he actually said that, but Cialis is a good drug. Very low side effects in general. Just don't expect to get an 8-pack if you start taking Cialis. It's not trenbolone. Ugh. Okay. Thoughts on pumping of a varicocele? Probably don't, but if you do, Sacre Blue, get a pump sleeve. Make sure that your nut cannot be pulled up into the tube. That's what's going to piss it off more than anything. But any kind of dilation of those blood vessels, it's going to hurt, and it could make it potentially worse. So I would personally not do it. Okay, so Liam, 30 minutes of clamping, but 1 hour total and counting 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. That's the max per day. So what I would teach is you can do 8 sets of 5 minutes maximum. What a joke for you teaches is 12 sets, 5 minutes maximum. It really depends who you want to listen to. I don't think clamping is that good in general. So you probably want to talk to the people that think clamping works, because they'll have better ideas of how to make it work, at least more optimally than I can. Okay. Forsaken, shouldn't you lose around 20% of your gains? You lost an entire inch of your 3 inches of gain. So there's a few different ways you can lose size, right? If you do not get super sick like I did and have literal penile atrophy, okay, and that requires severe disease like COVID that impacts the cardiovascular system, you can lose size that way. Then, whenever you stop stretching, you'll see that elasticity response drop in the penis. And that's going to be roughly 2% of your total size. So, like, I don't know. If I am correct, 9 times 0.02, I should lose about 1/5 of an inch when I stop PE completely at my current size. That assumes that my erectile function is going to be the same. So like I can still get the same boners. But you should not lose that much. If you do, it was never really gains to begin with. Hitman, real quick, soft clamping versus hard clamping for gains. I would always use soft clamps for 2 reasons. One, soft clamps are much easier to break than a hard clamp. There was a picture that was on Getting Bigger like this month or like a month ago. That was just a bloody clamp because he put it on backwards and couldn't get the screw unloosened when, I guess it's just loosened, right? So he was wearing a clamp, but there's a screw on the front. He put the front on, so he technically put on the clamp backwards. His brace broke, leaving the clamp stuck on his dick because he could not easily take it off. So he literally had to like crush his dick to get the clamp off. There was blood on the clamp afterwards, so I'll let you decipher what that means. So the difference with soft clamping is, since it's rubber, God forbid they get stuck for whatever reason, you can snip it. You won't have the same damage. You might, bruise the skin a bit, but it's not going to be nearly as catastrophic. I also noticed much better occlusion with soft clamping because it's just a soft rubber, so it matches your dick much better than anything a hard plastic can. Like, there's a reason why they use a bunch of silicone sleeves under clamping so they can get the correct shape. Okay, is this gonna be loud? Yeah. Lion Soup, great work on the Golden Path. Thank you. That video is going to be such a pain in the ass to make because I don't know what I've really done for the past 6 weeks. So it's going to be a lot of remembering. But, like, my main issue with that is, like, I'm pretty sure I've taken photos on 3 separate cameras. And, like, the camera I'm using now doesn't have, like, a set aperture. So, like, it just zooms in. So I don't know exactly what kind of parallax error I'm getting from that. And then I do know from the beginning, my pictures were about 4 inches closer to my D than it was now. So, like, the camera would have been here. Now it's, like, here. And, like, whatever that difference in angle is between my dick and that could technically make me gain, like, 1/8 of an inch. But, like, that distance here is going to be more like where my head is, right? So, like, it makes more sense for me to report what I see rather than trying to match whatever fucking Reddit wants. But anyway. Kenny, how many feeder sets can I do on my off day? You can do 2, just keep it at a relatively low pressure. Flying Soup, when do you guys get in stock? I was told it would be today. So, first of all, we have a very big backlog right now because, again, I've explained this before. You might be watching now, but we have a new guy that's handling most of our search engine optimization and website development. And apparently, we should have done that a year ago because of how much we're selling now. On top of that, Hank did 3 videos with pumping in mind, so they've just been flying off the shelves. So we have a very big backlog in orders. It sucks for you guys, and it kind of pisses me off too because we finally got in stock. But, you know, it is what it is. Do we still have lag? I just saw some chat. It looks good on my end, though. So Hank was pulling on his flaccid stretching. Does he incorporate some type of weak joke? No. Hank literally did stretches for 5 minutes straight, basically. And then sometimes he do something called the Captain Morgan stretch, I believe, which is kind of a variant on BTC stretch. I'll do it in 1 second. But no, literally, I sometimes wonder if Hank is a robot because he is a fucking methodical madman. Like, I don't understand how he can be so consistent all the goddamn time. It's like something I'm genuinely jealous of. It's like if I was as consistent as Hank, my God, I'd be like 11 inches right now. But and I'm not talking just PE, I'm talking in life. But anyway. Okay, Forsaken says he's 5.5 inches in girth. Some people claim 6 is monstrous, but I can't imagine my penis to get as big as some people claim 6 inches, considering that I'm only 5 inches away, or a half an inch away. 6 inches for normal people, like just average people, that's huge, okay? So let me do some quick math to give you an idea. Making sure my things are even 45. All right. So 4.5, that is the average girth. We're going to take the area of that. That is 14.13. Now, 6 times 3.14 is going to be 18.84. So we're looking at 18.84 divided by 13.13. We're talking 30 to 40%, we'll say 35% more dick just in girth alone compared to the average. So the thing with girth in general is that it's exponential. So the bigger you get girth-wise, the more space you take up compared to length. So like every 1/8 of an inch gained in girth is going to take up a little bit more size than the preceding 1/8 of an inch. It is quite large. And like I know most guys don't realize how big 6 inches is unless they are like receiving it. But like I can barely wrap my hand around mine now. Most women would have a significant gap with my size at a little bit over 6 inches. There's some weird clanking back there. I'm going to have to check that out in a minute. Let's see. Daniel Levy, jelqing is dangerous. Do BFR massage than a pump. So, I still believe you should not jelq because it's hard to do right. But like jelqing in general is a massage mechanic first and foremost. So like if you do it lightly, you'll get all the same benefits as tunica release and BFR massage. The problem is like you could go on Thunder's Place right now and pick up a 15-year-old routine that That said, you need to jelq at like 80% erect. That's when it's dangerous. Anytime that you're compressing the tunica like that, you really only want to be about 40 to 60% erect. Okay, do I have any other hobbies besides dick and working out? Well, I used to. Over here off screen, I have a fish tank for my 300-gallon, or a filter tank for my 300-gallon saltwater tank upstairs. And then I have my freshwater tank in the dining room. But between that and some light gaming, so like I'm really still obsessed with Baldur's Gate, even though it's over a year old. That's about it, because like I do this an hour to an hour and a half a day. PE is like my life, so I don't even really consider that a hobby at this point. Then everything else I got to do, I got maybe 4 hours max of like undedicated time that usually goes to my wife and everyone else in my family. Zero. So you said interval pumping earlier. What would be best protocol for interval pumping? Cause of fatigue in 5-minute sets AM, PM to train the shape. More accurately, 10-minute sets is what I'm doing. 5-minute sets will work fine too. But like I just think a little bit longer with dilation in the pump is going to lead to a little bit better shape training. Again, I don't want to say I just came up with this, but like I have not really given it as much thought as I had until recently. Golden Mind, it seems a lot of people say clamping works much better. Is it true because the high risk, high reward? And no. Before Hank and I, and again, this is going to sound really full of myself, and no one pumped right, okay? If you looked at Thunder's Place and some fetish boards, they would recommend 3 sets of 20 minutes. I used to do 3 sets, 20 minutes of pumping. It would be nothing but lymphatic buildup. So if we're trying to train for blood holding, we need to maximize training the blood holding tissue, which means we need to figure out how to limit the edema response, because there's no real limit to how much liquid can pool under the skin, as there is a limit to how much blood you can pull into your penis. And how much blood you can pull into your pecs while you're holding them for a stretch. Okay. Anyway. So, I have noticed, particularly since Hank and I came on the scene, there has been a strong push against clamping because a lot of people are gaining with pumping. And this is another thing. I sell both clamps and pumps, soft clamps. The pumps are still outselling them significantly. So I think clamping is a useful tool in general, but like it's not going to be the be all end all in a routine. Should I pump directly after extending, or should I do length retention with a sleeve, a couple hours then pump? Or should I do extend and pump, or do length retention after I pump? Okay, so I am still trying to figure out this retention stuff in full, so I can't give you a good answer other than the main thing is that you want to get that dilation response eventually. If we're trying to train for length, you want to be in the length state for most of the day. So length work, retention, a couple hours, take an hour or two off, come back and pump. That's how I would do it. Tyler, is it normal for it to feel like 1 pound is too much when hanging? Just starting PE, but it seems low. So I normally have my followers and clients do 2.5 pounds to start. And like the actual fatiguing rate seems to be 4 to 6 pounds. So we'll try to get you up to about 5 pounds in the first month. If 1 pound is too much, you're going to have to take it slower and make sure you're actually attaching it properly, because like if you're just grabbing skin, it's going to hurt a lot more, right? Obviously, because you're just literally pinching the skin. So start slow. You might be better off starting with manuals to get kind of used to that tension, and then you can get back to hanging. All right, Liam, do you think a fleshlight would improve stand up or intercourse? I currently last 5 to 10 minutes, and I'd love to double that. Yes, but I'm just going to warn you, you can develop, they call it death grip. And what death grip is when you can only come from either your own hand or your own toys. Basically, you train yourself to only like this certain sensation because it's the right intensity. So like if you grip a little bit too tight while jerking it, for example, a vagina is probably never going to be as tight as your hand can grip. So if you get used to that tighter grip, you're just never going to come. In general, though, edging gives you better understanding when you're about to ejaculate. That's very useful. So basically what you do is work up to the point of no return. Once you're just about to cross it, you stop. I'll learn that feeling so you know what it's like during sex, and that way you can constantly go up to the point, take a break, do maybe some foreplay or something else, just change the pace even, is usually enough for me. You just got to practice knowing when to not bust your nut, essentially. And a fleshlight would be useful for that, but like you probably don't need a tool for it. Girthquake, heard Perv lost some size, but he's back doing better. Yeah, I'm pretty sure knowing Perv, as soon as he starts getting real consistent, particularly with cardio and stuff, he's going to be back to normal size. But I'm just glad he's back. Let's see. I'm not sure if that's Jesus or Jesus. What suggestions do? I'm not sure if that's another question that you're trying to ask. If you said anything relatively dirty in English, the filters here on YouTube will catch it. So retype it a little bit more creatively. Okay, my girth hit 0.606 and my wife said no more. Now, are we talking pumped or are we just sitting there at 6.06 normal? If you'd still want to continue, I would obviously keep your wife informed on the endeavor, but give her, I'd say, about a month to get used to the new size, and then you can continue going again. Again, you don't really want to force something on your partner if they don't want it, but you got to also keep your own self-interest in mind. Like, my wife said I was close to her limit many times, and I am probably an inch bigger than when she first said the issue, and she's enjoying sex just as much, if not more, since I've reached this size. It has nothing to do with the size, just our abilities together. Like, we have a much better understanding of each other over the past couple years. Hitman gaming streaming incoming. Probably not, because the games that you guys would watch, I don't play. I suck at first person shooters. I have not touched NBA 2K in years. I was actually pretty good at it, but so it's going to be mainly grand strategy games, which is just staring at a map for hours, because I'm pretty sure I have an autistic variant. And then Baldur's Gate, for example. I mean, everyone can get behind Baldur's Gate, but like if you're in the middle of the playthrough and you come back in the stream later and I play like 6 hours, you're not going to get the story. So, let's see. We'll do these flies, and then I'll do some biceps and forearms. I don't know what time it is. Well, I maxed out my Fitbit for today. I was cycling this morning, and I forgot to turn off like the calorie tracker for the exercise. So I literally said I was exercising for 9 hours and burnt like 4,000 calories, which is bullshit, but Mega Snox, it's live. It's gonna be so real quick, guys. Tomorrow, this stream's probably gonna be 5 p.m. My dog has seizures, and tomorrow is, or I guess it's epilepsy, not seizures, but tomorrow is a checkup for her, so I got to take her to that. But I'll try to stream just later. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in a gaming stream. No promises, though. on the actual content of the stream. Zaruk Attaboy, I think that's how you say it. Manual pump or auto. You can get gains with both, but if you're doing interval pumping routines like I teach, the automatic pump makes it so much fucking easier because you don't have to worry about it. You can kind of just lay there and the pump will do its thing. But manual pumping is much better for like the feeder sets because one, you don't have to worry about charging it, and two, you just kind of set it and go, top off pressure every few minutes. It's not that big of a deal. But if I had to pick, I would get 2 smart pumps so that way I can charge one while the other one's in use. Come on. There we go. And that is too much weight. What was I thinking? Forsaken. Back to the question. I think my 5.5 looks skinny. His girth gain is going to change that. Maybe my penis dysmorphia is just out of control. What's going to happen is your penis is going to look shorter because it's now fatter. That's my issue. So, like, I would say that my dysmorphia is largely cured, but, like, my perception still can vary a bit day to day. This is basically the same thing as I did before. But, like, if you think 5.5 looks skinny, you do have really big legs from what I remember. They're near my size. Or you're relatively long, possibly even longer than you think. And PC or console, I do PC. Remember, I was a software engineer before all of this. So, like, I started coding because of Skyrim mods. And that's what got me at least comfortable enough to take it up as my major. I was going to have to lower the weight. That was not the right feeling at all. Infinite, I'm 5 inches girth. I've been with a few ladies. Some girls are looser. I'd say 5.5 or 5.7 would be the sweet spot. I'm not going back to pumping until I've gained at least an inch in total length. So, first of all, loose does not necessarily mean anything other than that she's extremely aroused. All right? Because part of that response is the relaxation of the vagina. So, if a woman's loose, that usually means she's really into it in most cases. But if they are causing issues with you feeling sensation, bring their legs together. That's really all you got to do. Megas Knox, you are welcome for the content. I am trying to make better content. I did just buy a better camera and a specific microphone, so I'm not as breathy, but we'll find out. Okay, Golden Mind, I had this issue. How about if you had the opposite problem of not being able to finish? So, hold on. I don't have that weight in me. If you have that problem, figure out what you masturbate to. All right? If it's relatively extreme compared to like mainstream porn, you probably have an issue where you've trained yourself to like that more extreme stuff, and since normal sex is normally not as extreme, it's going to be hard for you to get the same excitement to ejaculate. So what you can do is, when you want to come, first learn how to relax. That's the biggest thing in sex. If you don't relax, you can have a clutch response, I'll call it. That's where you just go like an Iron Man and then you can't come. Or you have the premature ejaculation response. But they're basically two sides of the same coin. You are too nervous. Relax. But if you're beyond that point, you're able to relax during sex and you're enjoying it, still not able to come, it's probably going to be how you taught yourself to ejaculate. So, back to your fetish, or whatever kind of porn you are watching. Think of that when you want to blow your load. And then think of that as a fantasy with your partner. So you're still with it, but you're not like so much focused on the sex in hand, but the fantasy of the sex in your mind, and that might help you get there faster. But eventually you want to be able to train yourself to just enjoy the moment, and that's just part of the process. Okay, let me try this again. There we go. And hold the stretch. So, biceps and forearms, and then call it a day. So I got like another 20 minutes at least. Let's see. Could I use a small massage gun, a lowest setting on the sides of my D prior to pumping? You can, but I feel like you get a better response with your hands when it comes to release. If you're trying to copy vibrations, you're gonna need something relatively high power and relatively wide in scope. So that's why I like using that massage chair engine. It just gives you a better coverage, essentially. Like I can get my entire shaft with it at 9 inches. Most of you guys are going to get very good coverage with that size, if not too much coverage, and that's another issue for another day. But Kenny Ferguson, what medication you're on and for what? Let's see. What about story-based games you beat? It would be fun to watch if you played that. The problem is like I would only be playing games for maybe an hour a week, and I would play the story games without you guys. So it would be a mess. At least the nice thing of Baldur's Gate is more so it's turn-based, so I can talk while I'm playing it. But like if it's like an actual RPG or RTS, I'm not going to be able to talk to you guys while playing it. How do you guys measure growth consistently? I'm currently using the base one erect with a C-ring. Any tips to improve the process? That's fine, but I can get a lot bigger with a cock ring right now than I can with a natural erection. So keep that in mind. It's fine for measuring progress, but like your true erection might be smaller. And if you post a picture on Reddit with it, they will chew you out. Speaking from experience. Forsaken starting to hate his 27-inch quads. So I had like 29-inch quads before I started having some knee issues. They're about 28 now. But I'm telling you, once you have big legs and then you lose them a bit, you get some significant body dysmorphia. So like, I feel like my legs are skinny now when they're definitely not. I feel like my waist looks a lot bigger, even though it's definitely not. So like, big legs are very useful for proportions, especially if you're used to it. Let's see. Golden Mine, how long of a porn detox to reach near baseline? So if you've been watching porn for a while, especially at a development age, there's going to be a lot of, let's just say, weird kinks that's going to be a little bit hard for you to get rid of. But if we're talking mental sensitivity to arousal, you'll see notable improvements after 2 weeks. And if you're able to like go 6 weeks to 3 months without it, you're basically going to be relatively normal. Just depends on how much you fried your brain with porn beforehand. Double Dragons Collector. He is 8x6 and having big legs aren't nice. So it's not nice for pictures, but like big legs in general are just good. So like, to me, if you're trying to have an imposing presence and you have skinny ass legs, no offense guys, it's not going to be hard to take you seriously. Our legs are designed for handling most of our power, right? So like if you don't have a big ass, big quads, and big hamstrings, you can't generate much force. But when it comes to PE, comparing to porn and everything else, it sucks. Like, my cock does not look nearly as big as it does compared to people half my size and legs. So the average leg size is 20 inches. And then that means there's going to be people with legs literally like 16, 17 inches within normal range. That is the size of my arm. So like, it'd be like comparing my dick to my arm if someone had skinny legs and my cock. So yeah, it's kind of blows for that part in particular. Okay, so City, in my GB post, how did your glands get bigger? They really took off this year with vibration extending in particular, because I was able to use granted, I was working up to the tail end of like what I normally work for vacuum hanging or vacuum extending, but vacuum hanging in general is going to make your glands much bigger, especially if you have relatively good sized glands to begin with, because it doesn't have a tunica. So like any swelling and expansion's almost immediate, and it doesn't go away because it's not getting compressed nearly as much. So you'll get a lot more growth in your glands doing vacuum hanging, especially if you're on the smaller side in your new cup. Vital facets. Most powerful combat athletes have big glutes and back, not necessarily large legs. So combat is different than contact, right? So like if you are a rugby player and you're in the line, okay, I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but the big burly guys in the rugby line, we in football here, it's going to be the offensive and defensive linemen. When you push, all that power is coming from your hamstrings when you're pushing against another human the same size, if not bigger than you. So that kind of power drive, particularly for sprints as well, all from the hamstrings, glutes, and quads. Now, for grappling, it's going to be pulls in, and then your butt causes basically all that power to be shot up. So like, your ass is literally the most athletic muscle on your body, if we're being completely serious. So any athlete needs to have a big ass if they're going to be able to transfer power efficiently. Okay. Irish Liam, clamping does not seem to be worth it due to risk of injury and discoloration rather than just pump and gain the right way. So some guys are going to have issues where they develop too much of a lymphatic response. So that means no matter what they do, any pressure, negative pressure, vacuum pressure on their penis is just going to pull in fluid faster than blood can fill the space. And they will never be able to gain blood holding tissue that way. So they have to clamp. And that'd be also vacuum extending, or do we need to vacuum hanging for that? No, it's going to be the exact same thing if we're trying to make our glands bigger. So the idea is that a vacuum cup is literally a penis pump just for your glands. It holds pressure, and then the silicone sleeve is just what keeps it on when you try to pull it off. But in general, the glands are getting sucked by a vacuum for as long as you're wearing the extender, and they're going to get bigger that way. I do not know much about MMA or boxing, guys. I've literally only watched the NBA. So you guys can talk about it, but I can't give you much other than some biomechanics stuff. Patrick Lewis has never used a penis extender before. What is a good way to start? Meaning creating a routine. So easiest thing for you to do, like it depends on how much money you have, but if you want to start for free, go on my Pornhub, look up BD Peak Male Physique. That's the same name of this channel. You'll find my manuals video there. You can start that for a couple weeks while you wait for your equipment to come in. If you're trying to go for length, you can get a vacuum hanger We sell them on Peak Physique. You can also get the Apex extender at Massive Novelties. That's a little bit pricey, but it's definitely worth it. It makes PE much easier. But between the Apex or a vacuum hanger, basically you're going to be doing 20 to 30 minutes of length work a day, 4 to 6 days a week. And then you can add more stuff as you go on. If you really want to kick into high gear though, get a penis pump. It doesn't have to be from Peak Physique. That's just my website. But it's going to make erection quality gains much faster. The real chief. Okay. So I hope you just caught what I said. Go to my Pornhub, BD Peak Physique, same name, find the beginner's routine. I'm also going to be starting a video series, hopefully this week, once I finish up my getting started guide. But basically check out my most watched views on this channel, and it'll give you a pretty good idea on how to start. Vital facet. Is there any way to target shaft girth other than bathmate? Yes. So bathmate is actually not that good at targeting mid-shaft, especially if you already have a taper, since it is kind of built like a traffic cone, right? So it gets skinnier as you go up. If we are trying to grow the mid-shaft, we want to limit the expansion of the base so all that pressure is applied to the shaft. And the easiest way to do that is to get a silicone sleeve, put it around the base, and you can use the same pump beforehand. What I've noticed though as an issue is that the sleeve likes to roll up, and that's where it can get a little dangerous. So you can get a smaller size cylinder that only works for your mid shaft girth. For example, my base girth is 7 inches, so like I cannot use, if I wanted to target my base girth, I had to use something larger than a 2 1/4. But for my mid shaft, that's a little bit over 6 right now, I need to get a tube that limits the expansion of my base, so that'd be like 2 1/8. Why Pornhub? Because it's the easiest way for me to put nude pictures of myself online. If it really is that big of an issue, I can talk to my website guy and we can work something out. In Texas, you can't access Red GIF now. My God. This is why I don't want to talk about politics on stream, but man, that shit pisses me off. A grown-ass man can't watch porn in the land of freedom. So these are a variation of Zotmans. I was talking to someone on Reddit. Essentially, a full Zotman's this, up and down. But if we're trying to target forearms, we really just want to spin the waist in the air. The real chief, flaccid size also changes. A lot of guys will see major changes in their flaccid size at first, but if you're like a really bad grower, and it's not bad being a grower, but like if you grow a lot, you're probably naturally a grower and you're going to not have nearly as insane flaccid gains as someone else. But it definitely goes up. My base is starting to become smaller than mid shaft. That's impressive. I think Hink is pretty even. If not, his base is a little smaller. So like, in general, I think most people are going to have a bit of a taper. But yeah, as long as you get the shape that you want, since it's soft tissue, you can form it however you want. It just takes time. Oh, my throat is a bit sore between this and allergies, I'll tell you that much. Just making sure my Reddit post is doing okay. All right, didn't go too bad so far. Outrageous strike against your free And will wanting to watch porn, which is agreed upon both by participants, is completely unauthoritarian shit. It's something, that's for sure. Could PE damage sperm DNA? More likely, no. I definitely know guys that have been able to conceive healthy children with doing PE for 5 to 10 years. Now, can you temporarily hurt sperm production? Yes. You got to be careful though, because it's really just putting too much pressure on the balls. So make sure the tube is relatively close to the right size. Don't let your balls get sucked up in the cylinder too often. Like, ball pumping probably isn't as dangerous as people think it is, but it can potentially cause issues down the line. In general, it's not going to affect sperm production. If anything, it might increase it because it's an increase of flow to the genitals, blood flow, that is. So, if we're careful, we could potentially be even more fertile with PE. But now thinking about it a little more, if we are constantly producing more seminal fluid, so like since we're agitating our penis, that kind of causes more ejaculate in general. That doesn't necessarily correlate with a higher sperm count. So we can kind of dilute our semen, and in some extreme cases, that can make you slightly infertile. Like, you know, not fully infertile, but enough to make it a little difficult to conceive. Probably not that huge of a deal. And then this is what sparked in my mind. There is potential that the way epigenetics works, that we may be making our ancestors' dicks bigger, all right? And now this is really far-fetched, but basically, if you look at epigenetic research, they looked at mouses, right? These mouses were taught to dislike strawberries. So they go next to the strawberry dish or whatever they serve strawberries in, they would get a shock. What they've noticed is the descendants of the shocked strawberried rats would avoid strawberries naturally. They have never met their mothers. That was part of the stipulation of these research studies, is that these rats would have no contact with their family, so there would be no nurture to teach these habits. So there's literally a genetic aversion to strawberries just because of constant shock to their grandfather or grandmother. So, for all we know, us stretching our cocks more than likely is just making it easier for them to grow bigger with PE later. But like, there's like, I don't know, 20 to 30% chance that doing PE now will lead to having bigger genitals in your bloodline later, which is kind of crazy, which did not seem possible until we started really understanding epigenetics. Ugh. BD, my glands is pretty small compared to my girth. Should I already be looking into enlarging my glands to make it look proportional right after my girth gains in the future? So you could start just doing like light vacuum hanging, like 2 pounds, and just get the swell in the glands, and that will grow it out. But like, if you have naturally small glands compared to your shaft, it's going to kind of follow that shape. Like, I've always had a little bit bigger glands than my shaft, so my glands are just fucking huge in general now. But do you know the biomechanics behind people pre-coming more once they start restoring foreskin? I did not know that. My best guess is since there's more sensation in general, their glands get more excited. So they just produce more. Also, if you have more skin, particularly circumcised guys tend to have drier skin. So if you have more skin, it's going to be less dry. Therefore, that foreskin doesn't necessarily act like a lotion for your glands. Golden Mind, I believe we're missing part of your question. I bought a device measuring tumescence during sleep. Would you consider the max diameter swelling a good indicator for girth work? I don't know what tumescence is, but if you are slightly bigger while with your nocturnal erections, then yeah, it's a very good sign that you are having positive changes with penis enlargement. Okay. Okay, so goal in mind, the new average is probably never going to be close to 8 inches, and that was too much weight. Okay, there we go. If PE becomes mainstream, which I really doubt because it takes a lot of fucking work, it's gonna maybe increase global size as 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't mean there won't be more extremely large dicks around. It might just change the variance. So, like, the standard deviation would increase, but I don't think the average would actually increase that much. All right, guys. I'm going to end it here because my throat hurts and I kind of finished up for the day. So, again, tomorrow, I'm still going to try to stream. It just won't be at 2 p.m. Got to take my dog to a specialist because she has epilepsy. She's my very expensive little girl. Anyway, and 2 people just joined the stream. Sorry that you missed it, but I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Just be on the lookout, Discord, Cult of BD Reddit. I'll post a link there, okay? And obviously, if you're subscribed on YouTube, you will get the notifications for this stream, but probably 5 or 6 p.m. All right? Talk to you guys later.